Hello, my name is Tauzer Dalal. Welcome to the webinar that is being hosted for International Chartered Accountants seeking their Canadian CPA and how Prep Formula can help you achieve your CPA. A little background on myself. Taught in the CPA Ontario program, CA program for Ernst & Young for several years, and I've been doing a lot of UFI CFI marking for a long time. And more importantly, I've worked with numerous writers in Canada who are looking for the CPA, a lot of them who have been successfully passed the 2016 and 17 CFI. Below is a list of about 20 associations. You can find that on the Ontario website, CPA Ontario website. And these people qualify through MOUs and through reciprocity arrangements on getting certain exemptions and going to what they call Capstone 1. Now there's 20 here, and since the beginning of the year, another 5 have been added. I think like Ireland, Australia, a bunch of them that have been added. Accounting bodies. Just a caveat here that all of these interpretations are basically my view and nothing representing CPA in any way, shape, or form. The schedule for today to discuss is what is the actual CPA prep process that you will encounter once you're granted your exemptions. What are the skill levels required at a high level to succeed on the CFI? And then comparing that to the skill levels you possess and how to weave that in to help you succeed. So then that automatically takes us into the next formula. So what are the key success factors to succeed on the CFI given your background, and especially the exemptions, and how can we help you bridge that gap, whether it's a technical gap, case writing, whatever else you need. Okay, and that's what the last two are, focusing on technical, and the one-on-one focus for case writing. So now the CPA process, basically it exempts you from the first 4 modules that others have to go through. And those are a little bit more technical / basic case writing module. And what you are directly entered into is called Capstone 1 and 2. That are both 8 weeks long, and they normally start around second week of May, and it goes right up till the CFI. So essentially you got to be physically here to do that. But you can prepare for them, starting 6 months in advance or whenever, but you have to be physically here to prepare for it. So a little bit about the Capstone 1. Basically what they do is they invite you over in wherever area you're staying, and you get put into groups of 5 students each. They pick the students. You have no say in it. And then you're given a large 30 to 50 page assignment, a case. And then you got to work on it as a group. And then they start off with a 2-day workshop, and then you're off on your own as a group. And then you have to hit certain, like at the end of the 2nd week, 4th week, you got to do certain milestones and then submit those. And then at the end, you have to do a group presentation to a panel. So there's no formal exam, but normally students spend about 15 hours a week on this, of their own study time, doing research, their own part, and contributing to the group's response for each deadline. Then you get about a 10-day break before Capstone 2 starts. Now, one of the things and Capstone 2 is basically a case writing module. So all that they're making you do is write cases for preparing you for day 1, day 2, and day 3 types. And what they do is they put you into groups depending on your elective. If your elective is assurance, you're working with an assurance facilitator and your cases are geared towards that. If it's PM, then that's the way. Again, it starts with a 2-day workshop, and then you go through every week you got to submit certain number of cases. And then you get them marked, and then they get them back to you. And then there's a debrief if there is, but you got to regularly submit these. Again, there's no final exam, and you'll spend most of your spare time practice doing these, but also you need to do your own practice preparing for the exam. So this is just not enough. You need supplemental work. As far as Capstone 1 goes, Prep Formula has special webinar 2 weeks prior to Capstone 1, which is very, very good, which helps walk you through exactly what you need to do and how to apply strategies in doing your group analysis and submitting your group assignments. And same thing for the day 1. The day 1 is a 4-hour case, and it's based on your Capstone 1 case. So they take that case and they extrapolate it and give you a scenario where the company is either changed, evolving, whatever in the future, and then they ask you to discuss a whole bunch of strategy, governance, management type questions. The day 2 is a 5-hour in length case. The first part will focus on FR or management, which is common for everyone. And then they break it into your elective area. So assurance, PM, finance, or tax, depending on what your elective role is. So then what would happen is it'd ask you to do some common things, and then it would go and ask you specific questions for assurance role or PM role or finance role or tax role. Anyone in public practice has to pick assurance. The day 3, it's 4 hours in length and normally has about 3 cases ranging from 70 to 90 minutes or 60 to 90 minutes. And the cases are obviously independent and they will contain all elements of the 6 competencies. The date of writing the CFE is September 12th, 13th, and 14th. So now what are the key success factors that we expect you to have in order to pass the exam? Expectations of the board. We're going to talk about that. Technical knowledge, case writing support, feedback from a professional on how to keep improving and working on your case writing. And then how do I take what I did and then learn from that, learn from my case writing mistakes, weaknesses, and make them into my strengths? How do I make my strengths even stronger? And then the other last part is obviously dedication, hard work, stress management. What kind of support do you get? It also depends on your experience. If you're in industry and you don't have much audit experience and you're doing assurance, then you need to focus more on the assurance role. So now from the expectations of Board of Examiners. So the Board of Examiner every year publishes something called CFE report. And in there, they kind of go through the exam, the solution, how people did in different areas, and what are the common mistakes, strengths and weaknesses. And every year, those comments seem to basically repeat themselves. Same type of technical errors, same type of case writing mistakes, same type of time management mistakes people keep making. So what we do as tutors at Prep is we go through these board reports and we actually break them down into how the board kind of consistently finds similar errors. And then it is our job to help you incorporate that into your case writing, your study plan for technical case writing to help you overcome those hurdles. And so at a high level, again, there are key things you need to know, when you're writing cases. User role objectives that tie into the required and coming up with the appropriate response. So those kind of things are what we will focus on. So the board wants to know, can you apply your technical knowledge? Using the role, so whether you've been asked as an internal auditor, external auditor, whether you're a consultant, or it depends whether you're helping somebody buy or sell in a business or whatever it is. Based on that, how are you going to tell the user to solve the given problems posed in the case and thereby meet the user objectives? So using the above framework, the board will consistently create different scenarios required to apply different technical areas to demonstrate your expertise to come up with a reasonable response. And this is a consistent theme played out on the exam, which we can help you with. Now, for your technical preparation. How does Prep help you with your technical preparation? So now, obviously, in the 6 competencies, there's a tremendous amount of technical material, and it could take you anywhere to a couple of 100 hours or more to prepare for that. And ideally, you want to have that done, or you want to have most of it done before you get to Capstone 1. But a lot of times students don't have the luxury of doing that. So at Prep, what do? We kind of look at it and say, in the interest of efficiency, there are certain topics that the board highlights as more important, A level versus B level or C level. So we help you focus on that. It's like the 70-30 rule or whatever. So if I spend 70% of my time on 30% of the topics, that's a big plus for me. So the whole idea here is, can I help you focus, or can Prep help you focus and condense that technical syllabus so that you're now only doing 40% or 30% of the syllabus, and then the rest of it you kind of have a good idea about. For international students, it is likely you haven't studied technical for a long period. So it's important that we help you. How do we help you set up a study plan? What do you do? Where do you get the study materials? If you falter or if you have issues, how do you get, information on that particular technical topic to further understand it and ensure you know it well? How do I know that if it's a A-level topic that I've done it and I know how to do actual calculation, adjusting entries, things like that? So one of the things that we do on top of the technical that we do provide is we have a whole slew of webinars that we have done in the past and that are coming up continuously. And what we do is these webinars could be on things like different types of FR topics, revenue, non-monetary transactions, leases, intangible assets, all of those kind of things. Or they're on assurance topics, different procedures, internal controls, how to do audit planning, discuss all of that kind of information. Or it could be on technical topics like management, finance, tax, actual technical, how to go through the technical material. And then how do we weave that into case writing? So we will discuss a topic, let's say R&D. How do the criteria work? What is expected of you to know at what level? And then how do you weave that into a case at the end with an example? How can the board of examiners, what are the ways that they challenge you in the past or so in coming up with discussing intangibles as a technical and then weaving it in the case to answer the user objectives? Another issue is financial reporting. A key in financial reporting is to know what adjusting entries to make. So normally you come up with issues and you have problems in financial reporting, say revenue recognition, where you have to reverse revenue depending on the criteria. They have recognized revenue, all of the revenue, but based on percentage of completion, they can recognize only so much. So now what is the reversing entry? And then that entry has to be made to the financial statements. And depending on what the user objectives are, then you make adjustments accordingly. So one of the things that we learned from the board reports is that 30% of the students make wrong adjusting entries. So now what we do is we go back and every time you do an FR topic in your case writing, we make sure that you do the adjusting entry and you do it right. The major test over the 3 days is not only the variety, but how you weave the technical, which also the webinars help. So now there's a technical you're studying, the webinars, which augment the technical, and it also helps you build with your case writing. So in the case writing, the focus is to determine who the user is, what your role is, and the objectives. So once you identify the technical, then like I said, you need to apply the impact, whatever competency that technical relates to, and follow through and tell me how it impacts or how it answers the user objectives. So the key is, are you using the right technical to address the user impact? In order to clearly tell me what the user has asked you to prepare or what value are you providing to the user by your analysis. So at the end of the day, the user wants value. He or she wants to know whatever they want to know, covenant violations, whether they're going to get a clean audit opinion, or whether it's in performance management, whether an option A or option B is worthwhile pursuing and why. So you apply your technical analysis to it, whether it could be cash flow, contribution margin, let's say in performance management, and then you follow through with your analysis and your qualitative and tell the user which option is better and why. So the biggest challenge in case writing is to figure out what you are being asked to do. And that comes in your reading, outlining, planning. And then once you start practicing your cases in your debriefing, which is how do I take the mistakes I made and keep improving upon them? That is the key building block. And that's where we come in. So for many case writers, especially international, case writing is something new. For other Canadian prep students, they get elements of case writing either in university or through the first 4 modules. In your case, you need to start practicing these skills at an earlier stage. And in most situations, a lot of people start early February. So that come May, when they go to Capstone 2-1, they're actually adequately prepared. And this is where the individual guidance comes in, where we help you from say Jan, Feb or March and start helping you with your case writing and learning those skills and start helping you practice them on your own so that you're at a good level come Capstone 1 and 2. So this is a key attribute or prep formula that we provide in our program and we specifically designed around it. So we work with you one-on-one to do that right from day one. Now, since many of you accountants, international accountants, you have a good base, technical base, especially in management, say finance. The challenges that you will have here will be Canadian tax, will be more in terms of ASPE, which is under financial reporting. You may have IFRS background. And auditing, a lot of it is similar, excepting there are some Canadian rules. So when you're doing auditing, things like risk, procedures, and things like that, the controls and stuff like that, a lot of them are fundamental across the board wherever you go. So that doesn't really differ. So if you go in with that mindset, you are probably likely to have a lot more success. So in terms of case writing, the main challenge is starting this case writing skill. Once you start it, once you understand what is expected, how all these dynamics, user role required come into play, why you have to do the technical, how do you pick it up, how do you weave it into the user objectives and answer, that requires you to do a few cases by yourself and with the one-on-one marker at the beginning. Once you get that in, then you have a benefit with your experience and stuff like that. You probably can pick out things easier than somebody who's out of university from your experience, if you've had experience working. So that is where I think you have a benefit as an international CA with experience. Doesn't matter whether it's in public practice, industry, whatever. So that is what is going to help you. But you need that 6-month period to do the case writing because it's like a marathon. It's not a sprint. So that's what the board is actually testing. And knowing your technicals is a good start, but then how to weave that in, you need to do that. And then once you start Capstone 1 and 2, that's going to take up a lot of your time also. So you need to be prepared to spend more time outside of that doing case writing. Whether you do it with prep formula, on your own, somebody else, you have to do it. So you might as well start doing it at the very beginning with somebody who teaches you how to do that right with the right strong fundamental base and then build on it. So now based on our experience in seeing these exams, marking them, the CPA exams, we have a very good idea of what is required in answering the particular required. So they're called assessment opportunities. And so there are the two main categories are reaching competent and competent. So I will give you a little example. I will go into a little detail about what those two categories mean. But for example, if you're doing a quantitative analysis, then how accurate? So first of all, in there, you need to know what type of analysis, accuracy of assumptions. For example, how many line items you need to put in terms of, if you're doing cash flow, how many items, or if you're doing a projection of revenue income, how many different expense items, are some of them fixed, some of them partial, and stuff like that. So the whole idea there is that you are going to, based on that, based on these factors, based on your answer, they will put you into two categories. Means did you reasonably do the analysis or you did it reasonably well? And they will put you in these two categories accordingly. So international CAs, regardless of their origin, obviously, like I said, they have this skill that once they start the case writing, then they can look back and understand and pick up the big picture, the triggers and those kind of things. And then a lot of them, their progression is a little bit faster than people just out of university because they have this eye through their work experience and all to do that. And how to weave the technical to respond to the user needs, that's easier than actually learning the technical part. The harder part is understanding what the user needs you to do and then weaving the technical into answering that. And a lot of international students, I find, once they get to that level in case writing, and they build that strong foundation, then they can really take off after that. So I find either two situations occurring. Either they do it or they don't. If they do it, they're successful. If they don't, then they struggle. The other hand, there are challenging areas in technical, ASPE, tax, like I mentioned. So our job as your one-on-one mentor is to identify those gaps. And how do we help you fill them? What kind of resources do we provide? Like I said, we have the technical, we have all these webinars which will explain to you how to study the technical, how to weave it. We have the one-on-one, but the whole idea is starting your preparation early. Doesn't mean you started when Capstone 1 starts. That's too late. I will be honest with you. Capstone 1 is too late to start for especially an international CA. You have to start earlier. You write a case, learn the fundamentals, learn the weaknesses, go away, practice a couple, come back, write one again with the mentor, improve, get the feedback, learn what mistakes you made, improve upon that, and then keep building that cycle. So that one-on-one relationship of working together is very important. So that is why our program makes a big difference, because we do not put you in a class of 30 and then just teach you case writing, because your strengths and weaknesses are unique. Completely different from each one to the other. So it has to be catered to you. Plus, if you're an assurance elective, PM elective, that also makes a big difference. And also we provide you with other materials throughout. How to read and plan, outlining, this, that. So depending on your skill level where you are, the mentor will work with you. So if I have two new students, for example, international CAs, they both could have very different backgrounds. So how I approach them and help them with case writing will be very different and catered to their needs. And that's the main idea here of the one-on-one. Now, the whole idea of debriefing the cases, which is very important, which we help you when we do the debriefs, is whether you identified and addressed all the indicators and how did you tie them in to what was asked of you. Now, as I said, reaching competent is where you have identified an answer reasonably well. That means, for example, if they asked you, describe control weaknesses in a particular situation or identify risks, then you needed to do 5 or 6 of them reasonably well to get full points, which is 4 points. But if you did say just 3 of them reasonably well, that means you're going to a reaching competent, which is 2 points. Or if you're doing a quant, for example, let's say you had a quant where you had revenue and you had expenses. Some expenses are fixed, some expenses are variable. The person that does a reasonably good job of incorporating the variable component, which is key, versus the fixed component well, will get the competent. And somebody who doesn't do that well or doesn't take into account the variable portion may end up at a reaching competent. So the whole idea here is that in financial reporting and management accounting, you need to hit competent on the exam. So the exam is set out in 4 levels. Level 1, you got to pass overall. Level 2, you got to pass financial reporting and or management. Level 3, you got to pass your elective. You got to pass all 6 in what they call is a breadth area. And the breadth area is basically at a reasonably competent area level. So the main thing is that if your electives, like say assurance, then financial reporting, management and assurance are key for you. And you need to be able to go into depth and show competence in those consistently on the exam. So again, the whole idea is that when we are marking, we're continuously striving to show you, okay, if you got reaching competent, how do you get to competent on this question? If you got to, now the other marking grids are, if you didn't answer that well or you very vaguely touched on a topic, you're going to be stuck at nominally competent, meaning you don't get any points. You basically just touched on the topic and said, I need to do this analysis. Or you said these are the control weaknesses. Or you said I have to do a contribution margin and I have to consider ABC without applying the actual analysis. So then we tell you, okay, now what is the next step? Why did you have to do it? What were the triggers that led you to do these kind of things? So that is most important. And then when you take it away, we will give you processes on how to do your debriefing. Once you finish your Skype session with me, after I marked your case and we have gone through it together. So then I will tell you, okay, now these are the key things you need to realize. Why do you consistently learn your adjusting journal entries? What are the technical areas you need to focus on? What are the webinars that are available for you to do your technical from? So these are really, really important. And there will be other things like you had to do a quant analysis. So why did you do the wrong quant analysis? What led you to do the right analysis? Or in terms of even just reading and planning, why did you miss certain things? What are triggers you look for? How do you read and plan strategically using numbers in the case and things like that? So some of the key debriefing points, there are lots of them, and we do have like a debrief sheet on, did you identify the user role right away? So is your role going to be an external auditor, internal auditor? And depending on that, you're going to approach the case facts differently. Did I use and consider case facts in my analysis? So for example, again, when I'm outlining risks, I don't just say that the risk is that a lot of companies release web platforms, but the risk is, why is it a risk? Because in the case they told you that they have consistently had problems with this new web platform. That's what makes it a risk. And that is what is taking the case facts and applying it. For quants, did I use the right assumptions? For example, in the case, if they've asked you to incorporate certain features into whatever they're building in certain options, then they will tell you indirectly that, you have feature A is not really required according to the owner. And so when you're discussing the cost structure, maybe you exclude that feature, but you tell me why. Because it said the owner doesn't require it or want it, or the owner specifically wants it, and things like that. And then there are other things is you regurgitate case facts. So you're telling me, okay, you know what, blah, blah, this so-and-so has happened. We have this accounting issue where they're recognizing revenue in this particular situation. They have done this. So now revenue cannot be recognized. But you haven't gone into the technical and explained to me why revenue hasn't been recognized. Tell me the criteria. Is collection a problem? Is risk and reward a problem? And then tell me what I need to do. What kind of entry do I need to make to fix that? And then depending on the case facts, you might have to reverse the entry and then do some recalculations. You might have to recalculate some covenants, the operating line, or whatever it could be. And then that information will be used further in your role like PM or assurance, where you're recalculating ratios, or in PM where you've made adjustments to inventory and things like that, and you're doing some other calculations. The other big problem is time management that students run into. How do I allocate time properly? So if I'm doing so many particular issues in a case, how to allocate time? So for example, if there are 10 control issues in the case, or if you're doing a SWOT analysis, for example, in performance management, there could be 20 different SWOT points. But really, 2 or 3 in each SWOT category is sufficient to get you to competent. Or if you're doing control points, 5 or 6 good discussions are enough, even though there are 8 or 9 in the case. So where do you stop? How do you rank the more important ones? So those are the specific things that we will help you with. Then also accordingly to each case, are there different types of scenarios? And how do you understand that? Another big thing that consistently comes up that students forget is, there are always comments made, that the controller thinks that they have accounted for this capitalization correctly. Don't assume that, because later on they'll give you information where the capitalization is done incorrectly. And you have to go through it, apply the criteria, and then tell me what to do. So those are important aspects of it. Another key thing we do is, as your weaknesses come up. So if your weaknesses, let's say you're doing a PM role or finance role or assurance, and I see consistent weaknesses, then I give you older cases to practice. And the older cases I pick, I know what the cases are about. So for example, if you're having problems doing specific quants, cash flows, or contribution margin or whatever, or decision making in management accounting, then I will give you some of the older cases to go ahead and practice that, or we will practice them together. Same thing in assurance for audit planning. If you're having trouble with procedures, we work on cases where they give you different kinds of issues and stuff like that, and you're consistently coming up with procedures. So you practice that. So again, as your marker trainer, I will help you zone in on that particular area. And that doesn't happen in a group setting. In a group setting, I say, okay, these are kind of important, go out and do it. But that doesn't mean it hits your weaknesses. Then there are a couple of other debriefing steps that you need to do. So after you finish your debrief with me, what else are you supposed to do? What else am I supposed to tell you to do? Do you need to rewrite parts of the case to make it concise? And attached here are 2 or 3 testimonials that I have from different students. And these testimonials are basically how Prep Formula and myself, these are overseas CAs that have come here in the last 16 or 17 CFE and past, and how we help them. These are key aspects of what Prep Formula provides. Also, I'm attaching a list here that you can see of our pricing structure, what exactly is available. Another key feature we offer is between Capstone 1 and Capstone 2, we do a 7-day live webinar every day, 2 hours or whatever. And those webinars are focused on, say, 3 key technical topics and then 4 case writing topics. And those 4 case writing topics are as follows. One is we do an IFRS case. One is an ASPE case. It starts off with general case writing. And then one is a day 2 case. So what we do there is we try to give you exposure. We pick a maybe 2015 or 16 CFE case and we tell you in advance. You write it, you prepare it, and then we go through as a group on a webinar and we go through and how did I approach it? What were the pitfalls from students in the past? If you came to this point, you got reasonably competent. If you came to this point, you hit competent. Okay? So again, in the beginning, I've given you my name, my email address, tauzer.dalal@prepformula.com. Or you can contact me on WhatsApp, 416-729-6269, and I'd be more than happy to help you answer if you need more information about the structure of the exam. Visit our website and see there's a lot of information there. And if you want like a demo or whatever, we'd be happy to provide that for you. And also, if you're currently overseas and you're planning on coming here, we'd be happy to explain to you what the process is and what is required for you to get enrolled and start. But you need to start now if you're doing the 18 CFE. Thank you very much, and I wish you all the best.